What is a country? The quick Google definition is a nation with its own government, occupying a particular territory. Okay, what is a nation? A large body of people united by common descent, history, culture, or language, inhabiting a particular country or territory. Other dictionaries have similar definitions for both. A country is generally an occupied territory with its own government and national identity. However, following these definitions strictly makes the world have more countries than it officially has. Some countries also break up and stop existing as a unified country. The United States, for example, is a collection of, by definition, independent countries, all with their own strong sense of nationality. A person from California, a person from Texas, and a person from Hawaii do not have a terribly strong sense of national identity with each other. But they do have a shared federal government that is recognized by others, creating a country. And that's the important part, the thing that actually makes a country: recognition. Countries do not tangibly exist. Borders are mostly not real. Human communities exist. They are physical entities made up of people. They form when more than one human lives, work, or share something together. There is no need for a consensus of existence for a community to exist. You don't need most people to agree that the LEGO fandom exists for it to exist. You just need more than one person sharing the same interest. Countries are different. You do need consensus, otherwise they don't exist. The Republic of Somaliland is a country in the Horn of Africa. It has its own culture, its own identity, its own currency, its own functional democratically elected government, its own trade, its own internal issues unrelated to other countries, and even its own borders. And yet, Somaliland does not exist. You won't find it on official maps, but it's there. The same can be said about Taiwan, Transnistria, Tibet, and other entities that fit the definition of a country, but aren't because enough people say they don't exist. This is interesting because using the logic we apply to countries, if enough countries stopped recognizing the United States of America as an independent country, it stops existing. Nothing changes, it just officially stops existing. If something requires enough people to believe it exists for it to officially exist, it's not real. Countries operate on orc logic from Warhammer 40k. Their technology only works because enough of them believe it does. Fiat money is in the same category. When not bound to a finite resource with a known value, money is just an imaginary number. So much so that money stops having value if the country that issued it stops existing. So, the imaginary numbers lose their value due to the connection to the imaginary country. If some kind of apocalypse happened, community would survive, but countries would not, and money would not either. It doesn't matter how much loyalty you have to a country, or how much of the funny numbers you have, if society collapses, it all means nothing. The imaginary country won't save you. The fictional money won't feed you. Billionaires who build doomsday bunkers are really funny because if society were to actually collapse, so does their wealth and power, meaning they can be targeted very easily to harvest useful resources like food from them. Good luck trying to control a security force in your compound when they can just shoot you and take the food you use to pay them. Billionaires think they're making compounds to protect themselves from the apocalypse, but they're actually just making themselves resource caches for the rest of us. The definition of what a country is changes, and it's so plastic that you can't properly define it. Anytime a good-sounding definition pops up, problems arise. In 2010, an article in The Economist once wrote, "Any attempt to find a clear definition of a country soon runs into a thicket of exceptions and anomalies." Every single definition of a country makes Somaliland a country, and yet it's not a country due to popular opinion. Every definition for a country makes Taiwan a country, and yet it's not a country due to political opinion. Public opinion is not a measure of existence. The moon exists regardless if people believe it does or not, and there are people who claim to believe it does not exist. If something's existence can be revoked with public opinion, it did not exist to begin with. That being said, the community as a whole does exist. Even if the United States stopped existing as a country, the American community would persist in some likely fractured way. The Republic of Texas no longer exists as an independent country, but the community for it still does. So this seems to toss a bit of a wrench into my point. If a country is just a big community, wouldn't that mean the country exists? No. The political entity that is the country's government, the thing that makes a country, is what only exists when we believe it does. The community or communities that make up the country itself are unaffected unless they are wiped out or gradually changed with time. You can invade a country and say it's part of your country now, but the community of that area remains unless you displace them. So, countries are in a way just nebulous constructs that envelop communities like a fog, putting the communities into a single category, but the fog only exists when we believe it exists. Otherwise, the fog just stops existing. Your local community exists, your city community exists, your national community exists, and our species community exists, but the political entities we call countries really don't. Your flag is just a binding symbol for that country that could stop existing at any time. Many flags belong to countries that do not exist anymore. Flags of governments, of territories, of movements, all with a sense of national pride and patriotism, now just relics of times past. Most modern countries as they are today did not exist 100 years ago. Even the United States didn't get its 50th state until 1959, changing its flag and maps. Countries are not solid, they are not immovable. All countries change with time, sometimes to the point of disillusionment. This is not an exception, it's a rule. Cultures change, languages change, politics change. Everything changes with time, no matter what. By the 22nd century, which countries in existence today will still exist then, and what new countries will have emerged? It's hard to say, they don't physically exist, so what countries do and do not exist in 2100 will depend entirely on popular opinion of the time. Speaking of opinion, this video isn't really science, it's more philosophy, so take from it what you will.